So, Fu, who was able to capture Killer Croc?
Batman?
No, an investigator.
Ugh.
You found the greatest DC Comics show on YouTube. Welcome to Fanboys Live and the Retro Review. Thank you so much for being here. On behalf of Tim the Comic Collector and Signature King, Tony Fett, we welcome you to the show. And I say we because I'm not alone. My co-host is with me. It is Comic Food 2814. And how are you tonight?
Doing well. How's it going, everyone?
We're doing well, too. How was your week?
It was good.
Did you pick up any books or do any hunting or anything?
No, although I have been going through some of my Funko collection. You can see behind me there. Got a bunch more over here.
Yeah, are you just cataloging or inventorying, or are you purging, or
reorganizing some of it, purging some, yeah.
Yeah, a little of everything then.
Yep.
Good to do that sometimes. I had some stuff for a long time in storage in a different town than where I'm living at, but I have everything back together with me now. So it's a long process of kind of getting things reorganized again. But I'll tell you, the cool thing is I'm seeing stuff that I haven't seen in years. And some purchases I definitely can say I am so glad that I bought that. You know, I might not have thought about this in a long time, but when I saw it, the joy and excitement it brought me coming back into my life, I'm like, that was a smart decision then to purchase that at the time.
Yeah. I love too when like stuff gets like boxed away or something.
Yeah, that's kind of
years later, and you're like, oh, I forgot.
Yeah. That's kind of what I've been going through, and have much more to go through. But I'm just trying to make the process a little bit more enjoyable. And our process of doing Fanboys Live and the Retro Review is always better when we have folks joining us in the live chat. Our first one up is I Collect a Lot. What's up to you? Thank you so much for stopping by to see us today.
How's it going?
Yeah, and he says, look who's back. Well, he's back from the Electric Band-Aid. We say hello to Copy 801 Wrench.
How's it going, Copy?
Oh, that's who he's talking about.
I've been here.
Yeah, you've been here, except for the weeks he wasn't.
Yeah, well.
And if you're watching us on the Rewind, we thank you so much for joining us as well for the show. So we started talking a little bit about what's going on with news, and I know that Signature King usually likes to talk about the DC movie universe, you know? So one little piece of information, at least regarding that I found that I thought was kind of interesting was could Booster Gold end up being Chris Pratt? So a lot of people kind of thought maybe, because James Gunn has said that he wants his Guardians actors and actresses in the DC.
I think we lost Lasso. Can you guys hear me? Or can you hear Lasso? Let me know in the chat. Please. People are also saying maybe the guy who plays Homelander plays Reverse Flash. Oh,
am I back now?
Yes, now you're back.
Wonderful. Good. I got hamster wheel.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if it was me or you.
No, I think it was me.
Okay.
So Glenn Powell was kind of the fan favorite to play Booster Gold, but now Glenn Powell has said the only superhero he would consider playing is Batman. So he wouldn't take Booster Gold if it was offered to him. And James Gunn has replied to a fan who said, why don't you put Chris Pratt as himself in the Peacemaker series? And he said, no, I've got a different role in mind for Chris Pratt. So now people are really thinking it's going to be Booster Gold.
I could see that.
I mean, time will eventually tell.
Personality kind of goes with that role.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little fun. I still want to be the voice of Skeets. I have done nothing to try to make that happen except say it on this show, which, you know, James Gunn watches on the Rewind, of course.
Of course.
But
he's one of our 10 viewers.
It is the greatest DC comic show on YouTube.
Yep.
So anyway, so that's kind of the DC news. I can slip over to a little bit of comic book news that's going on. So you might remember that we had talked about the fact that those big Treasury editions that Marvel versus DC that have happened throughout the years are getting an omnibus. They're actually getting two different omnibuses. There's one kind of with the majority of the classic stories from the 70s through the 90s. Then there's a second omnibus with the amalgam stories that they did. These are going to be done in omnibus format. There has been a change in the release date from that. It was scheduled for August 6th. Now they're both being moved to September 24th. But what's more newsworthy is it is confirmed there will be only one printing of each volume. They will not keep going back and reprinting these. So does that change things for me? Potentially, yes. Because at first when they announced it, I went, without a doubt, I am getting this. And then I kind of wavered a little bit and kind of went, I don't know if I'm going to get this.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I did. And now I'm back on going, yeah, I think I should get this. So,
chance.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't, I don't need the one with the amalgam because you can pick those books up in the dollar bins. Yep. And they're not hard to find because they're from the 90s.
Yep.
But there's stuff like, just to get a decent copy of the very first Superman versus Spider-Man, an original, would cost me the price of the entire omnibus.
Right.
And those DC versus Marvel, those things always tend to increase in value because they don't overprint them. And I'm sure they don't overprint them because of the licensing difficulties with both companies, getting them to agree on everything. How about you? What are your thoughts about that? Does that change anything for you?
No, I've never really been into that category of collecting, so I'll let that pass.
Okay. I see we have some more folks joining us in the live chat. What is going on there, Hack? Thanks for stopping by. And we have Paul S. here, too. Always great to have Paul joining us, too. Hi, so Paul. I know Paul is a Earth 2 fan, and since we were just talking about treasuries, you notice I got my Superman versus Wonder Woman shirt on, which was, that image was the cover of a treasury that they did together. It was a limited collector's edition C54.
Yep.
That is going to be done as a facsimile. Now, they did do a hardcover reprint of it a few years back, but it's going to be a soft cover facsimile on September 24th. Also in
treasury sized?
In the treasury size. So it hasn't been, no word yet if there will be a foil version of it, but the other treasuries have had foil version covers. So that wouldn't be out of the question for that to happen. And also limited collector's edition C37, which means everyone knows what C37 is. No one has any idea. That is the Batman Villains one, where he's standing on the rooftop and you see all the different signal lights with the villains' heads in there. That's going to be effects. Okay, I might have to grab that then because it's not too far away from me. Maybe for book show, I'll pull it out and see if I can snag that. That's going to be a facsimile as well. That looks like November 24th. That will be coming out in the treasury size format. So that's pretty cool. Meow to the Jackson Roy Kirk, who has joined us. Yeah. Some regular comic book facsimiles that will be coming out in the near future for DC Comics. The first one will interest you. We don't have release dates for these yet, just that they've been confirmed to be forthcoming facsimiles this year from DC. Green Lantern 59.
59.
Yes, that's a key.
Is that Guy?
Yep, first Guy Gardner.
Yeah.
That will be getting
a facsimile?
Yeah, that will be getting a facsimile yet this year. Flash.
Look at that.
Flash Comics #1 from the Golden Age. That will be getting a facsimile. Now there are 2 first appearances in that book. Who are they?
I guess Flash.
Flash is one, which would be Jake Eric.
Right.
I'll give you a hint for the other one.
Guessing it's a villain.
No, it's another Justice League member, but not a founding member.
Aquaman.
No.
I don't know. I don't know.
It is Hawkman.
Oh, Hawkman.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
So Detective Comics 400 getting a facsimile. Do you know whose first appearance that one is?
No.
Man-Bat.
All right.
That's got a great cover on it, too. And then Batman 237, I don't think there's anything really key about that, but it would be a great cover, and I wouldn't be surprised if they don't do this in October because it looks like a great Halloween cover with a ghost on it. Mm. So all of those have been confirmed by DC as coming out later on this year. Flash and Hawkman is coming out later on this year as in the facsimile format. So, yeah, I think we mentioned that last week on the show that House of Secrets 92 is getting a facsimile as well. So, yeah. Plus, of course, there's the ongoing Crisis on Infinite Earths monthly facsimile.
Yep. Yeah, I saw a couple of you posting that in some chats.
Yeah. So for me, we had mentioned that last week too. First Plastic Man.
Wow.
So for me, I mean, that kind of wraps up the news that I'm aware of. How about you? Is there anything else that you wanted to contribute to that before we move on?
No, I took a quick look. It looked like it was a slow week again. So
yeah, it kind of does. When they know that Tony's not going to be on the show, they like to take it pretty easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, there's Bobby. Bobby. Hey, Bobby. What's going on? So
everyone's showing up now that Tony's not here.
I know.
Right?
I know. So before we get into the retro review, I will tease again like I teased at the end of last week's. When we get to the book show portion, I actually have something Watchmen related to show in my book show. And I'll probably grab that Batman Treasury too, just to remind you of the cover. Once you see the cover, I'm pretty sure you're going to recognize it or remember it. So.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. But if you want to pop up the assist, this is our final Watchmen for the retro review tonight. We're covering issues 10, 11, and 12. And you're gonna do the bulk of the lifting here, and we'll get you kicked off tonight with issue 10.
All right. So if we recall where we left off last time, Silk Spectre and Dr. Manhattan were having that conversation on Mars, and they decided to come back and help humanity. That's where we left off. Now, with issue 10 here, DEFCON 2, we are immediately jumping into the president being escorted away on Air Force One. And he is being taken to this secret base here. And notice the words, 2 riders were approaching. That's going to come back later. We get the president coming off of Air Force One to this secret base, I guess, in a mountain. You can imagine intended to take a nuclear strike, right? So I'll kind of push past through some of this, but basically we're getting some conversations here about a first strike, right? And his advisors are basically advising President Nixon here to be thinking about that, and that they are entirely safe underground here too, and they're not going to be allowed back up until it gets back to a better DEFCON rating. All right, so then we switch over to Rorschach and Nite Owl. If you remember, they had just Silk Spectre and Nite Owl had just broken Rorschach out of prison, and then Dr. Manhattan kind of zapped Silk Spectre up to Mars, leaving Rorschach and Nite Owl alone here. So they're in his Nite Owl's little ship here, and they stop off at Rorschach's apartment so that Rorschach can get a spare set of clothes. And throughout this whole issue, it's kind of a fun back and forth between the two of these, and you get to see that these guys have been friends for a while. Rorschach gets his spare outfit because his was taken by the prison. Gets a spare outfit from under the floorboards, and the landlord shows up with her kids, and Rorschach reminds her that she lied to the police making false accusations about him. And at this point, she's very scared, obviously. And but because the kids are there, Rorschach decides, we got what we came for. Let's go. Then we switch over to Antarctica, where Ozymandias's base is, where his secret kind of compound, and he is walking with these two guys. They're talking about some kind of business plan they had. Um, he's talking about gathering more information, and you can see the screen of TVs on the wall here, where basically he can keep tabs of all the news on Earth. Right? He's constantly monitoring everything. We'll jump back to Rorschach and Nite Owl here. Rorschach's getting dressed, as you can see, and they are actually under the water. I guess they're in the river here, hiding out, basically waiting for night to come because they work best in the dark. So this gives them a chance to kind of chat back and forth for a bit, and they're trying to figure out who could be behind these hero murders and what's going on. And so that's when they start thinking, well, what if there is no mass killer, right? Night Owl's like, just hear me out. What if the comedian learned something accidentally? Uh, and there's this plot against John to scare everybody to think that he causes cancer to those around him, to get him to leave. And and they're kind of going through this, and they realize, yeah, but that doesn't entirely make sense because there was an assassination attempt on Ozymandias, and so they're like, yeah, so maybe we should um, follow that lead and see, or that angle, and see if they can't find some leads as to why or who was behind the assassination attempt of Ozymandias. Um, Also, as they're talking, I mentioned like the banter back and forth, and at one point, Night Owl kind of gets upset with Rorschach and lets him have it. And at that point, Rorschach has this moment here where he sticks out his hand to shake Night Owl's hand, calls him Daniel, and he says, "You are a good friend. I know that. I am sorry that it is sometimes difficult." And at that point, Night Owl just cuts him off. He's like, "Hey, man, it's okay. It's okay." So, so again, they've been friends for a long time, as we see here, and they kind of get, after that little talk, they're kind of pumped up again for their reunion, and Night Owl's like, okay, it's time. And they break out of the water. It's nighttime now, and they are gonna go do this investigation together. Now that kid is still reading this pirate comic book, but I'm gonna kind of brush past much of that because it doesn't apply to the main story here too much. But as you can see on the newspaper at the newsstand, Eastern Europe tanks mass as conflict escalates. So things are definitely heating up on the world stage. We saw the president being moved to a bunker. They're worried about a first strike. They're contemplating a first strike themselves. And it's all over the news. Ozymandias, that's the screen that he was watching. Um, and so Rorschach and Night Owl, again, on their investigation, they go into this bar, and they're basically looking for answers. They're trying to figure out who put the hit out on them. And in his usual way, Rorschach uh, interrogates the suspects in not exactly the legal way, I guess, right? But he gets the information he needs, that there was this. This is the guy that basically facilitated the hit. He didn't know who the hit was on. He was given an envelope basically, to pass along, and but that he realized later that evening that that was the assassination attempt on Ozymandias. So the one thing he does know is where the note was passed, and it was to this like corporation or something. So that's the clue that they need. Um, they're all set to leave, but Night Owl, he really starts going off. He's frustrated at this point, and he starts choking this guy out. And actually, takes Rorschach to kind of calm him down. And he snaps out. He's like, "Oh man!" And so they leave the bar. He's feeling pretty bad about what he just did, and they decide to go over and investigate this. I guess this company that they heard about. Um, it's this place where they track all this Egyptian stuff, like relics and whatnot. Then we get this. We see this ship, and there's all these, like, it looks like maybe either rich or some really smart people on this vessel, and they're leaving this secret island, right? And they're all happy to finally be leaving this island. They're talking about some kind of psychic something or other. And as they start pulling away from the docks, there's two of them there in the engine room. They were getting ready to mix the spaghetti sauce, but one of them noticed a ticking device, and that's when she asked, "What's wrong?" And he's like, "Nothing. Just hold me." And at that moment, because he realized it was a bomb, the ship blew up. And so again, it's like these scientists or something leaving this like secret island. All right, back to Rorschach and Nite Owl. They're investigating this place, looking at all the Egyptian artifacts, looking for clues. And Nite Owl sits down at the computer, and it says request access to all files for Pyramid Deliveries. That's the name of this company, and it needs a password. And Nite Owl starts thinking about it, and he's like, "Well, it's Egyptian, right? So let's try Ramses." And it says the password's incomplete. Do you wish to add Ryder? So he writes Ramses 2. And at that point it says password accepted. Hello, Adrian. Here are the files you want. And if you recall, Adrian is the first name of Ozymandias. And so at that moment, it all begins to come clear to Ozymandias that, or to Nite Owl, that Ozymandias put the hit out on himself. And they start realizing from there, they're like, wait a minute, if he put the hit out of him on himself, then he must be behind this plot to get rid of Dr. Manhattan, and that means probably also the comedian. And so the whole thing is, we're starting to realize as they investigate this that Ozymandias has been behind everything. So Rorschach is writing all of this down in his journal. Basically saying that they think it's Ozymandias. They're going to Antarctica to his base to investigate. And he's also acknowledging that he's probably not going to survive this one. He thinks that this is, he says he cannot imagine a more dangerous opponent than Ozymandias. Because again, he's the smartest guy in the world, if you remember, as well as incredibly rich. So he writes this down in his journal, and we see him drop it off in a mail slot, which is kind of interesting. And he signs it Rorschach, November 1st, 1985, and then his little Rorschach symbol. All right, I'm going to jump past this part again, and we get to this newspaper place, or sorry, it's the U.S. mail, and they deliver the Rorschach's journal to the newspaper. And this kid brings it in to the editor, and the editor's like, I don't got time for every one of these like crank files. Just throw it over there with the other crank files, and we'll get to it later. And so it gets thrown on this basically stack of letters that they're really never going to get to. So all that effort Rorschach spent, and it just goes into a pile to be unread. You can see the owl ship is flying in here to Antarctica, and as they get closer, they start having problems with the ship, and that's when Nite Owl realizes, oh man, I just washed the ship before we came here, and the cold, it must be icing up the components. So they go crashing into Antarctica. But fortunately for them, they're only about 20 miles from the base. So they decide to get these hover bikes out, and Nite Owl changes into his polar outfit. He offers Rorschach one as well, but Rorschach's like, no, I'm fine. They reminisce real quick about the last time they rode these hover bikes together. And you can see they go racing off into the snow. And look at Nite Owl. He looks like an owl. So as they're kind of cruising in, we see Ozymandias catches them on the video cameras, and he's like, "Everything's all right." And that's where we get the rest of that quote there. If you remember at the beginning, two riders were approaching. Here we get outside in the distance, a wild cat did growl. Two riders were approaching. The wind began to howl. And I know you haven't seen the movie yet, Lasso, but what's really cool is this scene in the movie plays that song in the background. It's really
Very
cool.
nice. Very nice.
All right, so I will move on to issue 11 and hand it off to you.
Boy, your issue gives new meaning to the terms banging.
Yes, yes.
So we got, looks like flowers to me. And we're going to see those flowers on the very first page as we get started. So there they are right in the second panel. We're seeing some conversations between two people who I think we're to assume are Rorschach and Nite Owl as they're approaching in Antarctica, Karnak. That's the name of the city. And, you know, they're talking about Adrian Veidt's, that's Ozymandias' reason for wanting to destroy the world. And as they are approaching, we realize as the viewer that this city, Karnak, is domed. So that's a little bit of a surprise. And look on my works, ye mighty. So inside they are being monitored by Adrian. He knows that they're there. He is talking to his cat. And he mentions a New York time, 11:18 p.m., and tells the cat the conditions make it so that Nite Owl and Rorschach won't arrive in time. They're not anywhere close. They're still miles away. We cut back again on the next page to Rorschach and Nite Owl. They're trying to come up with a plan as they continue their quest to get up to the Dome City. They know Adrian, and he never wanted to kill people before. Now they're starting to question if he's even sane. So inside, Adrian stops watching them and starts leading his cat into another room and tells the cat that they have some things that they need to do. So he heads into the next room and he starts programming something on a monitor, and apparently knows what he's doing. And when it's done, he goes and invites some guests to a celebration before they have dinner. Now we're at the newspaper stand, and at the newspaper stand, Josephine arrives. She's looking for her girlfriend, Aline. And then we have a little bit of that pirate story that the little boy's reading in the comic book tied into that. So now cutting back again, we are back with Adrian's guest. They meet him for a drink. He says that the celebration moment is 2,000 years in the making. So we start at this point to get Adrian's origin. He was born in 1939, the same year that his parents migrated to America. He's really intelligent, but purposely hid that from his parents and his teachers. His parents died when he was 17 years old. The only human that he ever felt kinship with died 300 years before the birth of Christ, and that was Alexander the Great. He ended up giving away his inheritance because he wanted to prove that he could make it from the ground up and start with nothing. So if we scroll a little bit more, we'll go back to the newspaper stand, and yep, right there. And then we have Josephine. She has arrived and she's looking for her girlfriend. And they start talking, and essentially she starts breaking up with her. And, you know, she's like, you need to read this book. And she's like, I don't want to read this book. I just want to stir the spaghetti sauce with you one more time at least. But she's having none of the stirring. That recipe is not in her plans for tonight. Milo's brother arrives and starts looking for him as well. Now we cut back to Adrian's origin story and how he idolized Alexander the Great and really tried to emulate him and walk a path like him. He ate some hashish from Tibet and then started having these weird visions. He ends up adopting the name Ozymandias and decides to start a career to fight the evils of the world. And he turns to his guests, and we realize that he is poisoned. On the next page, he has poisoned his guests with the beverage that they've been drinking. And, he obviously did it. That was the plan, to get rid of them. And he just quietly walks over. Then we get a page with, on the next page, no dialogue at all. Sometimes I think that those pages with no words speak the most. And he opens up a little bit of the dome. Remember, we're in Antarctica, and all of the snow and cold conditions start to come in, and the snow falls in. Now we're cutting back on the next page to the newspaper stand. We have a little kid that's reading the comic story, The Tales of the Black Freighters, where in that story, one of the characters is swimming towards the pirate ship. On the next page, it's time to catch up with Rorschach and Nite Owl. They finally arrive at Carmack, and they are able to gain access. Once they're in there, Nite Owl's like, hey, I thought I had some stuff, but look at all the stuff that he has around here. And they start going through the complex trying to look for Adrian. And we see that they have been in some locations where we've seen him at already in this story. But at least on this page, they don't end up finding him. On the next page, it's another no-text page. And they have found Adrian. And they believe that they're sneaking up on him. But Adrian's able to see their reflection in his dinner plate. And then he starts to attack them. He's able to defeat them, and then Adrian asks what he can do for them after he's defeated them. And on the next page, they start saying, hey, you know why we're here. And he starts talking about a little bit of his past, how he met the comedian Edward Blake. They instantly despised each other. But really, Edward Blake, the comedian, wasn't the main interest to him, or it was John, Dr. Manhattan. That's the person that he was interested in. And he starts talking about, he knew that fighting evil as a superhero, he could never actually rid the world of evil, that he was fighting the symptoms, leaving the disease unchecked. And at this time, the Cold War was escalating, and he just knew that he had to step this up a notch. So we're back on the next page of the newspaper stand. Gloria Long is asking if the newspaper seller has seen her husband, Malcolm. She ends up finding him and instantly kind of, says, hey, we're having problems in our marriage. I want to stay with you, but you keep interfering in these hopeless cases, and this is affecting our relationship. And then he instantly does what she just accuses him of doing. He sees Josephine, and Aline fighting, and he goes over to offer his assistance and to his help. So now we're cutting back again to Nite Owl, Rorschach, and Adrian. And Adrian is talking about how in life he had to take a step back to assess the situation to figure out what he could do, look at it from a new, fresh perspective. And sometimes even in doing that, you realize that you have to take another step backwards. And then on the next page, he talks about how Dr. Manhattan, that's John, Dr. Manhattan's presence was just enhancing the situation that was going on in the world. And how the costume heroes were becoming problems. And he knew by the late 70s it was going to reach its bottom, and he needed to come up with some type of a 10-year plan to get what he's fully looking for. Then at the next page, we're back to the boy at the newspaper stand reading his comic strip. The newspaper stand owner starts talking to him. He finds out the little boy's name is Bernie. He says, my name is Bernard. We have the same name. And the kid's kind of like, I don't care. A lot of people have that name. I just don't care. And then on the next page, back to Adrian and continuing to talk about how Dr. Manhattan John just had to be out of the way. So he gave cancer to his associates, which would force John into exile, believing that he was the one that caused that. The comedian stumbled upon his plot, so he ended up killing the comedian before he could reveal his plan to anyone. And the goal is an end to the war and to the end of the fighting, which ironically, as he's saying that at the bottom of the page, you'll start seeing that other people in the world are fighting and having war. And you'll see that in the next several pages as well. So then Adrian would finally teleport his life form, whose brain was cloned from this powerful psychic, into the actual New York City. Since teleporting technology was limited, anything living that is transported would die of shock and then explode. And then this shock wave would kill half of the city's populace. So this is kind of his big master plan that he's been working on for all of these years. Then he reveals, he didn't want anyone else to kind of get the one up on it, kind of like how the comedian did. So he hired his own killer to throw the suspicion off of him. And Rorschach and Nite Owl ask him, well, when are you planning to do this? And then we cut to the next page, which is my favorite page on the book. And he says, do it. I did it 35 minutes ago. And I was just like, oh, that is so cool. And then on our final page, we see what's going on in the city. And literally, the people are fading to oblivion. And then our quote is, my name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair.
That's a cool one, isn't it?
Yeah. Let's say hello to Ruben Guzman. White Tiger, cool, calm, collected is with us. Jason has stopped by to see us and throw some shade at you as well. So hi, Southern Comic Geek.
How's it going?
And now we will wrap up the 12-issue series. Take it away,
right.
Tony. Take it away, Tony.
Yeah. All right, here we go. So Ozymandias has just unleashed his ultimate terror on the world. 1 second. Sorry about that. And we open up here at Madison Square Garden, and you can see the carnage. Sorry. You can see, New York is just a mess. Everybody's dead. We just get page after page of this, and you can see these weird, like, tentacle things. They're kind of all over the city. We just get, oh, look at that thing. This is basically his beast. So what the comedian had found was on that secret island, the one where all the scientists were blown up on that boat, he had been creating this this beast from another dimension that he teleported here, but it had its brain was modified with human DNA, psychic DNA, and so that when it transported in, nothing can survive. So it blew up during the transportation process, but when it blew up, it sent a psychic wave out that basically took out everybody within a certain vicinity in New York. So a stronger, loving world. So Dr. Manhattan and Silk Spectre arrived back too late. Dr. Manhattan, something was affecting his ability to kind of see this happen, basically. He wasn't aware, and he actually mentions here, he's like, I'd almost forgotten the excitement of not knowing the delights of uncertainty. Meanwhile, Silk Spectre's just devastated. Nobody's left alive. And they're trying to figure this out. And so Dr. Manhattan is trying to, like, trace back his steps, try to see where things left off. And he realized there's a few signals coming from around the world. And one of them, the strongest pulse, is from the southern polar region. And so they decide they're going to go to Antarctica as well to see where this pulse is coming from. So he ports them away. Back with Ozymandias here, Rorschach and Nite Owl are just, like, astonished. They're like, I can't believe he did it. Rorschach is just begging Ozymandias to remove the cat from the room so that Rorschach can have a piece of Ozymandias. And Ozymandias is like, you just want the humiliation of another beating. But Rorschach knows he can't do anything when that tiger's there. So they're talking about Like, what would have happened if, the assassination attempt, it killed your secretary? What if it had shot you instead? And he says, well, I guess I would have had to have caught the bullet. And he just grins. Um, and Nite Owl is still kind of in denial that all of this is even real. And Ozymandias is like, it's all real. This all happened already. Um, and they're still going and talking about it. And they see on the screen Dr. Manhattan and Silk Spectre outside. So we go back to them. They're outside of this fortress. And something weird happens here where John is he's unable to really like see inside. There's some kind of tachyon interference, as he calls it. And at one point, she's asking him, she's trying to figure out, she's asking John, like, hey, did Adrian really do this in New York? And he responds with, yes, he killed Blake and half of New York, Blake being the comedian. And then he says, excuse me, Rorschach, I'm informing Laurie 90 seconds ago. And she's like, Rorschach, what are you talking about? And he just kind of goes inside and leaves her out there. And she's like, yo, what are you doing? Don't leave me here. Walks inside and he sees Nite Owl and Rorschach. And Rorschach's like, must stop him. Killed Blake, killed half of New York. And Dr. Manhattan says, yes, he killed Blake and half of New York. Excuse me, Rorschach. I'm informing Laurie 90 seconds ago. So you can see with this like tachyon interference is affecting his ability to kind of handle time, I guess, the way he normally would. We can see things happening out of sequence. But he just keeps continuing walking inside like he's on a mission. And he's looking for Ozymandias. In fact, he's even like, this is silly. Why are you hiding from me? You know I'm going to find you. And he walks through this certain chamber, and the cat, Bubastis, happens to be there. And Ozymandias says, forgive me. And then he clicks this button, and it basically zaps the two of them, Dr. Manhattan and his cat, into oblivion. And he says, wow, I actually wasn't sure that would work. And he says, of course, it was the tachyons that made it possible to give him something he wasn't expecting. At that point, Silk Spectre shows up, seeing what had happened. She's like, you're an a-hole, and she shoots. He falls on the ground, and his hand opens up, and there's a bullet. He caught the bullet. And she realizes just in time for him to kick her. Not quite as bad as Batman's kick to Poison Ivy, but still pretty bad. And then he was also saying something else he wasn't sure would work was catching the bullet. So he was taking a chance here. And Nite Owl's yelling at him, and he's like, "Oh, Daniel, please do grow up." And he's like, "Look, my new world demands less obvious heroism, making your schoolboy heroics redundant." And he goes on to basically, this is where Dr. Manhattan busts back in and says he's very disappointed in you, Adrian, right? And he's like, restructuring myself after the subtraction of my intrinsic field was the first trick I learned. It didn't kill Osterman. Do you think it would kill me? I've walked across the sun. I've seen events so tiny and so fast, they hardly can be said to have occurred at all. But you are a man. And the world's smartest man means no more to me than it does its smartest termite. What's that in your hand? Another ultimate weapon? And at that point, he says, yes, you could say that. And he turns on the news to see the pictures of New York. All of the dead, people wondering if they've been invaded by aliens. And then we see, nations from around the world begin to come together and say, let's end war, and let's come together to address this threat. And that was his plan all along. He wanted world peace, and he thought he had to take it on his shoulders to achieve it for everyone. And he cheers here. He's like, I did it. I saved Earth. I saved Earth from hell, and I'll take her towards utopia. Silk Spectre starts yelling at him. She's like, "What do you mean it? What do you mean? You're not going to get away with this?" And he's like, "I already have gotten away with it. You can't expose what I've done now. If you do, it will undo world peace. I've got you in checkmate." Um, and he says, "Let's compromise." And at that point, Dr. Manhattan chimes in. He's like, "Logically, I'm afraid he's right. Exposing this plot, we destroy any chance of peace, dooming Earth to worse destruction." And Nite Owl comes to the same conclusion. They all do, even Silk Spectre. And then there's Rorschach, who's like joking, of course. And they're like, "No, Rorschach, you can't say anything." And he says, "No, not even in the face of Armageddon, never compromise." And Rorschach goes storming off. He is not going to play along. He's going to let the world know. So they go walking off and they notice that Dr. Manhattan has disappeared. The two of Nighthawk and Silk Spectre, they're having this conversation. They're obviously very sad about what's happened in New York. They're trying to deal with everything, and they do the only logical thing, and they stir the spaghetti sauce. So
Yep, they got the recipe out.
there you go. Hey, the world's New York's done, but we've got world peace. So yeah. Meanwhile, Rorschach, he's outside. He's going back to the ship, and Dr. Manhattan shows up. He's like, "Where are you going?" And he's like, "Back to the owl ship, back to America. Evil must be punished. People must be told." And Dr. Manhattan goes, "Rorschach, you know I can't let you do that." And we get this really cool scene here where Rorschach rips off of his mask and he's like, um, "Of course must protect you must protect Veidt's new utopia. One more body against Foundation's little difference. Well, what are you waiting for? Do it." And he goes, "Rorschach," and he screams, "Do it." And he does. Dr. Manhattan executes Rorschach. So he goes back inside, finds the two lovers there, and kind of has a weird little grin on his face.
He knows the sauce was stirred.
He knows it was stirred. He goes walking across the water, up the sides of the wall, I guess. Goes back, meets Ozymandias, and he goes, and he's like, "Hello, John. I'm glad you're here. We haven't had a chance to talk." And they, this is where Ozymandias gives his little speech about somebody had to take the weight of all of this on their shoulders, and I'm that guy. And John's like, "I'm leaving this galaxy off to another one less complicated." And I think he even says something like, "Perhaps he'll create humans." Um, and Adrian goes, "John, wait, before you leave, I did the right thing, didn't I? It all worked out in the end." And Dr. Manhattan says, "In the end, nothing ends, Adrian. Nothing ever ends." And he goes, "John, wait, what did you mean by," and he's gone. So we flash forward into the near future. The original Silk Spectre here gets a knock on the door, and it's her daughter, the Silk Spectre, with Nite Owl here, both in disguise, because they're still wanted, right? For breaking Rorschach out, I guess. And they're talking. They wanted to let her mom know that they're still alive. She thought they had died in New York, and so she's obviously very relieved to see them. Um, and she confesses that she knows who her father is. I think it was meant to be the comedian, right? I think that's what she found. And because when she leaves too, the mother even she kisses this photo of the comedian back in the day. So she was actually in love with him.
But he attacked her.
I know, I know. That's what makes it all really weird and
That's
difficult.
messed up.
Yep, yep. and it ended up being Silk Spectre's father. So here we go, rebuilding New York, and we get to remember that newspaper we saw originally,
I do.
where Rorschach's journal was delivered to?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out the editor here, he's a grumpy guy, and they don't have any with the war over that he doesn't know what to report on. He's like, "Oh, grab something out of that stack," and the kid's like, "Which one?" He's like, "I don't know. You decide. I leave it entirely in your hands." And what is he going for there? Rorschach's journal
With that shirt.
with the shirt.
Yeah.
It
What's the
would be
quote there at the end?
Yeah, it says it would be a stronger world, a stronger, loving world to die in, by John Cale.
Interesting.
So as we see here in the end, one of the things I found so interesting about this issue in particular is, of all these heroes, when they're finally placed in a position where like their core principles are going to be tested, right? The outcome ends up overriding their principles, in that they're going to let Ozymandias get away with it because the good outweighs, the bad, I guess. And but Rorschach, of everyone, he was the one that stayed principled up until the end, even though it cost him his life. And here he goes in the end. It was actually he still won in the end because he had already sent that journal before they ever left.
Yep.
So pretty
We
cool.
want to say hello to Bottom Tier Collector. So let's kind of talk about this story just as a whole from what we've done. For
Yeah.
me, if it's okay, I'll go first and just say, because I've said this already, I haven't read this story until now. So, but I went in knowing how beloved it was. I definitely had an awareness of what the story was. This this set of stories that we shared tonight maybe doesn't seem as shocking, but even now, I was aware these came out in 86, 85, 86, 87,
Yeah.
85, 86.
Yeah.
For that time, that was huge. And that was very groundbreaking. And even though you might see stuff like this now, even stirring the spaghetti sauce didn't happen in the comic books back then. I mean, it just, if it did, it wasn't talked about, or it was in between pages or panels. But definitely groundbreaking. It does make me want to watch the movies, or watch the movie, I should say. I keep saying movies because I keep thinking that series is the same thing as the movie, but is the series a prequel?
I don't even know. It's like almost unrelated.
Yeah, and what Bobby says here, I can absolutely see that. You find something a little bit new, or something maybe you didn't notice or forgotten about, or something. I could see where that could happen. So yeah, Dark Knight. So
yeah.
What would you definitely like to say about it?
Well, this is definitely one of my all-time favorites. When the movie came out, I hadn't read the comic yet, and I don't know what it was, but I decided I'm not going to see the movie until I read the comic. So I rushed out and got the trade paperback, and I just devoured it. And I was like, this is amazing. I went out and saw the movie, like fresh off of reading it. And what blew me away is how accurate the movie was to the comic book. I've never seen another comic movie as accurate. Again, the panels in the book are right there in the movie. The songs, the music, right?
Mm-hmm.
The series is in the future. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, I loved it. The whole thing with the kid reading the comic book, the first time reading through, that really did confuse me.
It definitely did me. I was like, I don't know what the bejeebies is going on. And until you told me, you had to tell me. And then once you told me, I was like, oh, I get it then.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's where actually the animated thing that came out with the movie kind of helps, because you get to see just that story in its entirety, and it actually is a good story. It's a little hard the way he does it in the book, though.
See, but a little bit where I get confused, and maybe this is a great time to bring this up. Like in my story that I did tonight, we're still introducing characters that their threads, at least in this section, don't ever tie back together. Like the two girlfriends, the husband and the wife,
Yep.
and
Well,
I was
I
just
would
kind of
assume they
like,
all died.
but I guess to me it was kind of like, I think that maybe because I'm programmed this way, that if you introduce a character, there's a reason they were introduced, and they'll weave that thread later on, but they really don't. At least I don't know if these people ever come back again, or what goes on, but it's just
Yeah,
interesting to devote some time away from your main story for someone
I
that.
agree. Yeah.
So it definitely is a different way of storytelling.
Yep. Absolutely. And I do think, who was it in the chat just said you got to read it 30 times, you'll find something new every time. Bobby said that.
Yeah.
It's totally true. I mean, those the last two issues really just explaining the whole plot. It all happens so fast, not to mention it's entirely out there and wild. This beast being created on this island with a genetically modified human psychic brain, like with teleportation that explodes, and it's a lot. And so it does take at least two readings of it, I think. But that was something in the movie, that was the one thing that they did change a bit, but that's okay.
All right. Yeah, it was a good read. I'm glad that I was able to get the chance to check this out.
Yeah, Bobby, he's talking about the HBO TV show.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. It's like a 10
That,
episode TV show.
yeah, I don't even know. It it's something weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a series, a set of miniseries for before Watchmen.
Yeah,
And
and I think
then
that's what it was
Doomsday
called.
Clock was where they brought them into the DC universe, right?
Gotcha.
So, oh yeah, that's good. Oh, the TV show is good? I haven't seen it.
It is
But
on Max, because I did look.
okay.
Check it out. It's on Max. So.
All right.
So
So, yeah.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, out of 10, what
Oh,
would you give this?
the whole, like the overall
Whole
1 through
thing.
12?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 8.5. Wait, out of
8.5?
10? Out of 10, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only reason I didn't go 9 is because of the introduction of the characters that they never pull the threads with later on. If they hadn't done that, I would have gone 9.
All right. There you go.
Bobby is doing a good score there out of 10.
Doing 11. Yeah. I gotta go.
Obviously, he does not like the series.
No. Well, I love Alan Moore, and this book, this series is a big part of why I'm going all the way with a 10. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, very nice. What do you think Tony would have gave it?
Tony
doesn't have any Harley in it.
Well, he has bad taste. He's like all into Shazam and stuff like that.
Well,
He's
not only that, he picked Section 8.
Yeah, that's right. He's probably like at a 3.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Probably. But thank you guys for watching us review The Watchmen. Who watches us reviewing The Watchmen? You do. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad we finally got to do this. I was looking forward to this one really since we first started.
Nice. It's always good to get one of those bucket list ones checked off.
Yeah.
So I did grab, during your last review, I said I wanted to get that treasury to show you, because I said I have a feeling this is the one that's going to be remade as a facsimile, because I still think once you see the cover, you're gonna remember it. So here it is.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah. That's the one that's going to be redone.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah, and it's got the nice little diorama on the back. And yes, I actually do have a clear Treasury Signs board in there too.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah, fancy is my name. So, what do you have for a book show for us tonight?
Only one choice tonight. Okay. I've got my full run.
All right, do it.
So this is issue 1. You can see I got these in a top loader because I just love them so much. Issue 2. And the covers for these are so neat. Issue 3. Oh yes, On Mars, the photograph. Issue 4. We've got the ink blot and the owl ship.
I remember that one.
Very cool. And then these are the ones we read tonight. We got DEF CON 2. This cover, the flowers. If you're not careful, if you're going too quick in the racks, you'll think it's a sketch cover.
Yeah.
And then this is the final one.
Nice.
There you go.
Very, very
I remember
nice.
I was so happy when I got these. This was definitely a big goal for me back in the day.
Did you buy them as a set, or did you hunt them individually?
I did get them all as a set.
Did
yeah.
you? Yeah, that's kind of had a feeling that you might have done that. So
yeah.
So for my book show, I told you I had something Watchmen related, and I've been saving it.
Okay.
And I'll give you a hint. You did not show it. So what do I have? Any guesses?
I'm gonna guess you have a button.
You know, I actually might. But, I might, but that's not what I picked tonight. I'll hold this up and let's see if you know the significance to the Watchmen with this.
They must be. Oh, is that Rorschach there?
No, I don't think so. I don't think
in the middle. No.
No, I don't think so.
I guess, are they listed in there?
This
first appearance.
First appearance.
Really?
Yes, this is and this is one of the reasons why this book is so valuable. It is the first Watchmen. It's also the first mention of Frank Miller's Dark Knight. So essentially, this isn't a comic book. This is like, if you remember those DC samplers that they did in the early 80s, they did 3 of those.
Yep.
And then in 85, to celebrate DC's 50th anniversary, they did this, but they made it as a convention exclusive. And remember, there weren't as many conventions around back then like there are now. So you couldn't get this at an LCS. You had to go to the DC booth, which makes this a little bit more rare. And I just thought it was an incredible cover, and it's a book I've been wanting for quite some time. So I
Very cool. What number is that?
It's the only issue, DC Spotlight 1. It's the only one that they ever did.
Wow.
Maybe we'll see. I definitely know we want to do something a little bit lighter after coming off of Watchmen.
Yeah.
For a month, we want to do something a little bit lighter, but maybe in the future, yeah.
Yeah.
And in my latest comic book editions video, I show a whole section of books of kind of oddities and rarities. This is Comic Book Editions Volume 194. That's my Tuesday long form video that's already on my channel. Of course, I had a back issue of the week, a YouTube short like I drop every week. I did something to tie in with Memorial Day this past week. So that's already on the channel. What's coming up tomorrow? Another back issue of the week YouTube short. It will be a DC Comics one. It will be a modern DC Comics one. And then Tuesday's video is going to be an all Marvel Spider-Man haul. So that's what you can look forward to coming up on my channel. And oh, wait a minute, bottom tier collector. You need to go back into the archive, because right after Easter, we did Captain Carrot.
We did. And his zoo crew.
And his amazing zoo crew. And the Just a Lot of Animals.
Yes, we did.
We did do that. So check that out in the rewind. Because it's there. I think
the Green Lantern was the little sheep, right?
Green Lantern or something like that. Lamb.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and Flash, wasn't he a turtle? For the irony of a turtle so slow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah. So that's kind of what is on the channel, what's coming up on my channel as well. Of course, next week we'll have Fanboys Live in the Retro Review. I hear grumblings that there's a guest coming next week. Have you heard those same grumblings?
Is this Tony's?
Yeah, that Tony has brought a guest or has a guest.
Yes, I think
coming.
I did hear that. Yes.
So,
yes.
And
maybe it'll be Tim the Comic Collector.
That would be a surprise. And he won't tell us what book we're reviewing, which is interesting.
Yep.
So.
All right. Well, maybe we'll be reading it on the channel.
Yeah. Oh, it is there, bottom tier collector. It is there. Just look in the archives. We did that literally like first week in April, I think it was.
Yeah, it was like right before Watchmen, actually, right?
We had a couple in between because you took a couple weeks off.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we had a couple in between, and then we did that. Oh, maybe it's Harley. It could be.
Oh yeah.
That would make sense. That would make sense.
That would make a lot of sense. I mean, we did just have a Harley episode earlier this year, but
he doesn't care.
He doesn't care. It's Tony.
It's too much Harley is not enough Harley.
Right.
For him. So that would make sense. So but thank you again, and everyone who joined us in the live chat. You guys have been awesome. If you watched on the rewind, thank you again for watching all the way to the end. We appreciate you so much. We look forward to visiting with you again for the greatest DC Comics show on YouTube. This has been Fanboys Live and the Retro Review. Have a healthy, happy, and successful week, and we'll catch you soon. Take care.
Bye.